Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Always Aggressive podcast. I'm Hunter Massengill alongside head coach Tony Ursuline. Tanner over to the side, Corey behind the scenes as per usual. Great weekend this past weekend. Couple of Big Ten wins over some good opponents. We'll start back on Friday taking on the Terrapins out in Maryland. A good win, dominating win over them, only dropping one match. 5 of the 9 matches that we won with bonus points, 2 major decisions, 1 tech fall, 2 pins. Some of the thoughts over Friday's duel.
Yeah, I was, I was impressed with their energy, and their fight and their focus. Going back, obviously we were at IU on Monday, and then had 2 quick days at home before we traveled again Thursday morning. So, to be on the road that much, sometimes it's easy to be a little sluggish. Sure. And I thought their energy and their focus was really good. And the bench was great. I thought everybody was really into their match and did a nice job carrying the intensity and the energy through the entire duel.
I'll tell you what, starting at 25 is such a cool thing for us sometimes, especially when Devin can do what he did on Friday. When he gets out there and he gets on his tilts and he starts rolling people up and that thing's over before it starts, I think that's a huge boost for our team. I think it lifts the bench up, really gets people going. Yeah,
Devin does a good job. I think everybody's got to understand, you're not wrong. Devin is that guy, and I think he enjoys that role. And so it kind of gets our team going. I would just say, though, when we have to draw, because traditionally I like to just go straight up.
Right.
It's the job of the first guy out to set that tone, right? Like that's that guy's job as well.
We got to go out. We got to get Devin to infect everybody with that kind of bug, like to want to be the first guy off the scale.
Yes, exactly. So, but no, Devin is that guy. I think he enjoys that role. But that's what you want your first couple guys out to do, right? Set the tone for the duel, and that's an important point.
And he certainly did that to that match. Got the tech fall. He had lost 2 going into Friday's match. He had lost to Spencer Lee, obviously an outstanding opponent. Cronin from Indiana as well. So going into Friday, kind of a get-right match for him, not only because he needed a win, but also a win in that fashion to kind of go out and do what it is that he does best, going out, getting so many back points and getting the 18-0 tech fall.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. Like, you're going to be tested at different times during the year. There is certainly the ebb and the flow of the season, and he went through a short, tough stretch there. Honestly, the IU match, as we probably discussed, was more about finishing. His finishing techniques. It wasn't about effort. It wasn't about anything. The fight. It wasn't about how he made weight or anything like that. It was just about, hey, we got to tweak a finish. And he spent a good week of working on some of those things. And, you saw it in the Rutgers duel, which I'm sure we'll talk about. Right. But to see him go out and get on the takedown and get right back to his turns, I think really got him going. And I think he knows who he is and what he has to do to win. I feel like he's in a really good space where, he had a rough patch there, a tough match, but he's fixing what he needed to, and he's right back to his game plan.
Got back on the horse.
Yeah, he's right back at it. So we're very impressed with his week, how he responded.
Another guy thought was incredible on Friday against Maryland was Kendall Coleman. Mm-hmm. He had a really tough opponent in Jahi Jones. That guy had beaten some people, and Kendall came out and took it to him.
Yeah, the thing that I was very happy with Kendall, once again, the energy was good, the focus was good, right? Like mentally, you could see he was into the match, he was excited. But for anybody who watched the duel, you saw how tall Jahi Jones was. He's a tall, athletic kid, and
he's super tall.
So the approach to the match was something that we had talked about with Kendall. How that young man liked to get his attacks off, and so Kendall had to wrestle from certain positions where he had to be really disciplined. And so we had talked about that, and you could see he maintained that discipline in his position, but yet was still able to go get his attacks. So that's good. You want to see guys be able to carry out a game plan to some extent, right? Make an adjustment or two. We don't like to totally adjust, right? Not be who we are, but hey, you got to pay attention to this position here. We got to be really disciplined here. And he listened and he executed, and I thought he did a really good job of controlling the match. And then you saw late, he was still fresh and attacking, and that's where he really teed off even more in the third and scored some more points and kind of opened the gap between him and that young man.
Thomas Panola having a weekend as well. This will segue us. It'll segue us into Rutgers in just a moment, but I want to talk about Maryland for just a second because he got his first pin over a Big Ten opponent this past weekend, I believe, if I did my research correctly. But we really see him, leading into the Rutgers match on Sunday. his approach to heavyweight is changing and getting better as each match goes by, where he's putting on weight and he's getting more and more used to wrestling guys that he's giving up 20, 30 pounds to, and guys that just have a little bit different style than what he's been used to so far.
Yeah, I think that's, I think that was my hope for him. And when we talked about this weeks ago, is that, what he would look like maybe at the end of the year would be very different. And here we're probably a month into it, and you see the changes starting to kind of come. He understands when he can attack underneath his opponent, when he maybe needs to hand fight hard, hold position, attack upper level, higher level attacks where there's not as much risk going underneath. I think he's figuring out when and how to use his attacks and the skill sets that he has. So that's, because you'll see, I think he heel picked both of those guys, but at the same time he showed some nice upper body attacks as well in both matches. So he's displaying I can go low and attack, I can stay high and attack. So that it's nice to see, he's making that transition.
And it's really good to see. Sorry, Corey.
No, you're good.
It's really nice to see that his efforts at heavyweight are going recognized. The first set of coaches' rankings came out last week, just before we shoved out east, and I think he got tabbed 25 or 26 at heavyweight. One of 8 guys. We had 8 guys ranked in the initial coaches' rankings, which is a nice sign and a nice step for us. It's the first of they'll do that 3 times. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Okay, 3 times. We got to wait a couple weeks still for the RPI, but getting one of those check marks for to qualify the weight for Big Tens in that that first round of stuff, and then to back it up with 2 wins after you get that first look from the coaches. Great nod to Tom and what he's put together at heavyweight this season, and to the other guys that actually that earned those spots as well.
I believe he's 4-1 in Big Ten duels.
He is
Is that
4-1.
correct? Right. So he's set a nice tone for himself. The only loss being to Cassioppi from Iowa there. So he's off to a good start. He's got plenty of good competition ahead. No doubt with Gable Stevenson coming in this weekend, But no, like I said, he's on a strong trajectory, as far as where we want him to go.
And honestly, when you look at Tom's record at heavyweight, he has wrestled a really nice schedule. I think his RPI is going to be really good when it comes out, because you look at who is, his losses at heavyweight. He's wrestled Cassioppi twice. He wrestled Tanner Hall from Arizona State. He wrestled, I'm not going to butcher this kid's name, but the young man from Harvard who's up to like 9th in the country in some polls. He has wrestled he's wrestled some really, really good heavyweights, and while lost to some of them, he's got some good wins too. He beat the Miller kid from Virginia.
Ernest Kid from Ohio,
yeah,
I think.
He's got a nice little he's putting together a nice little heavyweight resume. It's pretty cool.
Yep.
And then moving on to Sunday, 28-18 win over number 22 ranked Rutgers at the time. We'll start off with Tom getting another big sudden victory match. It was incredible to see. It was a top to bottom from start to finish. It was such a fun duel to watch because there was so much excitement, but especially in his match, because going into the third period he was up 1-0, and then it quickly got evened up with an escape, evening it up 1-1, and then going towards the end of the third period, getting that takedown with less than 10 seconds to go, and then kind of looked like he had gotten some swipes for some back points, and I think that's what he thought when he jumped up, because he was definitely celebrating as though he had just won. Thought he'd gotten some back points, went to the review table, wasn't the case, but then came out like shot out of a cannon in sudden victory to get the takedown. Incredible for him to be able to get that win, and it was so fun to watch.
Yeah, no, the energy in the building was great. They had another good crowd, and so created a great environment for a duel. And there was a lot of back and forth, obviously, in that duel. The interesting thing, Tom, it was 1-1, and he was still losing on riding time, and then he gave up the takedown and he got away. So now it's 3-2, but he still has riding time against him. He sells out. He wrestles so hard anyway. He gives you everything he has every time, but he gets the takedown. So now it's going to be 4-4 unless the kid gets away, which time expired, and we thought we had swipes. But I thought he did a really good job. To keep your composure in that kind of environment is important, because you go from thinking, oh yeah, I just caught swipes as well. I won the match. Okay, no, I got to get ready to go again. He did a really good job of kind of just refocusing, staying in the moment, and going and getting right back on him. He didn't want the kid to recover or get a chance to kind of drag him into that double OT.
We almost didn't care about the swipes because we wanted him to keep wrestling because we knew Tom was on him. Like,
right.
We were like, forget the review. Let's go. Let's wrestle.
Let's go. And, that kid having riding time, there was no doubt in my mind that he wanted to, get through that minute, get him back to the mat, and try to win on the ride out. You know what I mean? Yeah. Get his point and ride Tom out, win that way. And so we thought it was important to get out there. And I actually had, when I look back, it was I threw a challenge brick on the takedown because I didn't think there was a takedown on the far side. That made it 3-2. Mm-hmm. And in retrospect, I shouldn't have done that. I mean, we were losing on riding time anyway. We were going to need a takedown anyway. Since we gave up 2 and then got 1 back, it wasn't going to matter. So right. When you have a guy who's tired out there, I just look back, and that was my mistake. I told Thomas that was that was my bad. When I'm not right, we all got to own up to our mistakes. So I apologize to Thomas because we needed to keep the kid out there, and I threw the brick, and it just slowed the match down. So I was really proud to see Thomas not let the kid skate by, you know what I mean, and he went right back after him, and so that was great.
It's funny, we talk a lot about Dylan Leidy and his overtime exploits and what he does. Thomas Panola has quietly built a 4-1 record in overtime this season, which is also matched by Kendall Coleman. Both those guys have been to overtime 5 times this season and came out on the winning end more often than not. So it's a pretty cool trend for the team.
Well, there's a point that I want to make to those sudden victory wins. After talking about the other sudden victory win, to win the duel, Parker Filius going out and getting a sudden victory win. Big. A huge win for him. It looked like there was a question for danger points they wanted awarded. If you can explain that a little bit. They weren't explaining it very well on the broadcast of that looked like they were challenging.
So I'm going to give you my 2 cents on this. I don't think it was danger. I think they threw the brick to give their young man a breather. Right? Yeah. Like he needed a minute to kind of get his composure back, maybe get his breath back and go get the win.
Yeah.
So
and Coach Goodale alluded to as much in his presser.
You're right, exactly. No,
he said it. We're not making a big leap here.
And so, but I mean, listen, there is a danger call, right? That can be made. I don't feel like anybody settled long enough, and that scramble at the end where we were, ankles to ankles. His head at our ankles and our head at his. There was no exposure where a guy could hold you in danger. Right. So not really relevant.
Yeah.
Although I get the rule could be confusing to people.
They did clarify at the end of the broadcast. Our friend of the pod, Jason Bryant, checked in with the broadcasting crew, friend of theirs as well, and he pointed out that the danger call can't be made if they don't start from neutral.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
In that situation, Parker was in
on
control,
top. Yes.
So he can't be put into danger.
Right. Yep. No, there's no doubt. So, and that's why, like I said, my 2 cents. They threw the brick to slow it down, give their young man a chance to kind of compose himself and get ready to go again.
But I don't want to bury the lead. Parker Filius getting another huge takedown in sudden victory. To kind of your point about sudden victory, Thomas Panola in sudden victory. Parker Filius is quietly putting up a 15-5 record this season. Having a great record and trending up.
Yeah, no doubt. Really proud of Parker. I mean, he was just, it's a big match for anybody, right? To win the duel, big crowd, you're in somebody else's gym, and he was relaxed, and he got behind a little bit early, but he just stayed with it. Never saw panic, never saw, anxiety. He just stayed with what he had to do, went about it. I think he picked him up 5 or 6 times. I'd have to go back and count it. But, every time the kid got up, he picked him up, he put him down. Yep. The only time it kind of got a little wonky was at the very end when the kid had to sell out and he rolled, and we fouled and did what we had to do. So I'm just really proud that he gutted out a very tough ride. And then again, when the overtime came, he didn't wait. He didn't wait. He went right back to his tie and pulled the trigger. And boy, that scramble was great. Right? There was like 4 or 5 really good things that he had to do just to secure the 2. And so, that's what you got to do to beat people. But really proud of Parker and how he competed in that environment. I think that's a great moment he can build on. As far as future. And like you said, he's 15-5. He's doing well.
And I was going to say, backing up from the sudden victory, the ride he had to put together in the 3rd period to force the overtime was incredible. He really put it on that young man, and he knew what he had to do, and he did it.
Yeah, starting the third period, he was down. His opponent had a minute 5 of riding time,
so
and
he
just
couldn't
completely erased it.
So he couldn't get the riding time point, even if with a full ride out, he wasn't going to get a point there. But he
couldn't give up the escape.
And he couldn't give up the escape because that was the loss too.
That was the point.
So I mean, he really he sold out and he got it done. He got it to that, and he knew that momentum from that ride led into what he was
overtime.
In the overtime. It was a great moment. Also, I didn't know if you knew this. That was his first career overtime match.
Really?
Parker had never been to overtime before.
I did not realize that.
That's surprising.
It's one you'll remember.
Absolutely,
For sure.
absolutely.
The point that I wanted to make about this, especially since we're talking about sudden victory wins, talking about our guys having great records in sudden victory, is their mentality going into sudden victories and going into really even the second and third period. I've seen it a lot this season so far. Our guys are always the first one to the line, starting the third period. Especially if they're starting neutral in the third period or when they start neutral in sudden victory round. Mm-hmm. I noticed it especially in Parker's match. And it could have been the environment. It could have been like he was fired up because he performed the way he knew he needed to in the third period. But it's within seconds of the third period inning, getting to the line of the third to start sudden victory is kind of a mental back and forth with your opponent to say, I'm not even tired yet.
Yeah.
That I can do this all day. And I'm sure that's a mentality that you instill in the team and that this team has instilled in them, that you get to the line as soon as sudden victory is over, and it tells your opponent that you're not even tired yet.
Sure. No, it's one of those things that doesn't ever show up on a stat sheet, right? Like coaches talk about all these little things that don't show up in the stat sheets that help you win matches or games or whatever your contest is, and that's something that I think helps you win those mental battles too. And listen, I won't say we're always the first one back, because I got some guys that we're working on that with, right? But it's no surprise to me that Parker and Pinola and those guys, they're the first ones back pushing the pace, and they're the ones who got it done in the OT, right? So I think that's reflective in, hey, they're the ones excited to be in the match, and they're ready to wrestle. They're showing the ref, the crowd, their opponent, everybody, hey, let's go, I'm ready.
Yeah.
And you can start to take control of matches, in that way. And like I said, there's no stats for it, but man, that's something when you watch film, you can point to your guys. See, look, you beat him back again. He's slow back. Look, he's hanging his head. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Let's push the pace, step on his neck now. Here's where you can break him. So those kinds of things become important. Even like you said, there's not a stat for it. It's something that you can show everyone, and everybody's going to recognize this guy's ready, and this guy's hoping he can get through it.
And I've seen it plenty of times, even to start matches, that guys are always the first ones on, they're, see guys kind of warming up. The last match is walking off, guys kind of warming up on the side, and our guys are on the line ready to go, like, hey, let's get this thing started.
I will say this. We do have some stats that can back this up, because we have of the 3 periods, we do keep some numbers. We are, in the first period, we're plus 135 on the year. In the second period, we're plus 118 on the year. But in the third period, we're plus 151 on the year. We have the biggest scoring differential in the third period over our opponents.
That's good.
Which is a little crazy, considering when you take the Devin Schroeder.
Yeah.
Like, Devin Schroeder's going to be the huge outlier in that.
He's teching people in the second period.
With all his points in the first and second period, to think that, he's got at least 7 or 8 matches where it didn't even go to the second or third.
Read those point differentials again for me, please.
You got it. We are plus 135 points in the first period. We're plus 118 in the second, and we're plus 151 in the third.
So we got to win the middle now.
Yeah,
is what you're saying.
well, I mean,
our middle is the lowest,
coach.
So we got
such a coach.
So now we got to win the middle. Is what I'm taking from this is we're closing strong, but it seems like
I think you're missing.
I think we got to win the middle.
Here. I think you're missing my point that I'm making.
You're missing it, Tanner.
But
I was going to say somebody's missing the point, but I'm not sure it's me. You got to pick up what I'm putting down here.
I am. No. I'm with you.
Don't forget, Dylan Lighty scores all of his points in sudden victory.
Right.
So
we're plus 25 in overtime.
That's true.
All right. Okay.
Well, a couple of big ones coming up this weekend as well. Obviously, you got on Friday, number 11, Minnesota coming to town, and then on Sunday, number 8, Wisconsin, not to mention Nebraska next weekend as well. All 3 of those at home, by the way, so be sure to come out and support the Boilers. 7 p.m. on Friday night, Hammer Down Cancer Night. It has to be exciting. Had a bit of a long road trip the last couple weekends.
Long,
And
tough
now
week
it's
last week.
Super long.
Right, now you get a little bit of a home stretch. While I'm sure you have your hands full with a couple tough opponents coming in, I'm sure it's still nice to be at home, at least for a little bit, and get a tough opponent on your home mat.
No, we're looking forward to being back at home, man. I love the fans, good energy. Even though Iowa didn't go our way, obviously, man, a lot of people in the stands. The energy was good.
great.
We want to do a little bit better as far as the word I use. I think coming back was wrestle with authority, right? So, the energy is always great at home. We appreciate the fans coming out. So, we want the same kind of environment, and it's going to be our job to bring the fight.
I will say this, going back to the weekend, fun story from the road. Tony was ready to kill me on numerous occasions because he had some interesting fights with his GPS. And so we're trying to go.
Those are two tough metro areas.
We're trying to go from. We're at Maryland, and we're trying to go from the hotel to the venue to practice, right? And so I drop the pin to the lot that we're going to, and I have it open in Google Maps, and so the 4 vans leave the hotel, right? And I pull up to the venue, and myself and Coach Shop get out of the vans, and we're there, and we're like, where's everybody else? And all of a sudden, I start getting phone calls. Where are you guys? We're at the practice room. Where are you guys?
True story.
We're in an empty lot. Well, okay. So it turns out that the pin that I dropped when they tried to open it in Apple Maps instead of Google Maps took them to an empty lot. And so
I don't even know if you can call it an empty lot. It might have been a street. It said you're here. You're here. It wasn't even your destination is right or your destination is left. It just said you're here.
You
and
arrived.
we were sitting in the middle of the street. Okay.
So on the one hand, Tony's like, I need to get to practice, and on the other hand, I'm like, learn how to use your cell phone. And the truth is always somewhere in the middle.
Right.
But it was pretty entertaining to like try and figure out and not only to like
Entertaining from your standpoint.
Well, no, I mean we laughed about it later, and we're laughing about it now, so it's whatever.
Yeah.
It's still funny.
It was interesting. We travel so different, right? And then, you think of football and basketball where you're flying or you have, a bus when you get there. And there's on occasion we'll travel by vans. It's just easier to get from here to there and run guys back and forth from competition venues
Absolutely.
and things like that. So, it's a necessity, but it does add these interesting wrinkles from time to time.
And then Coach also narrowly avoided a disaster on the drive from Maryland up to Rutgers. It was raining the whole way, and he saw a heck of a spin out from an SUV.
Yeah, we saw an SUV spin around and then hit the guardrail and end up facing us. It was just like, it might have been, a quarter mile in front of us, so we got stopped. But yeah, it was a great trip.
Wow.
It was wild. He's calling
sorts
me.
of stuff.
I'm like 2 miles behind him, and he's calling me like, "Hey, get over in the right lane." Like
Good
this
scout.
It's about to be backed up.
That's a good scout.
this happened. You need to go this way. So yeah, it was wild stuff. But no, anytime you're distributed over that many vans, it was you're sitting there and you're trying to coordinate everybody. And there was one point when I was calling like, call Tony, call Suf, call Shop, call Tony, call Suf, call Shop, all over and over and over. And the guys in the back of the van are like, "You gonna make it up there? You good?" I'm stressed for you. I don't know what's going on up there, but you're doing a lot of stuff right now.
I'm impressed they took a break from Clash of Clans long enough to ask if you were okay.
It was
Yeah, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
I hear you.
The fact they looked up.
I will say this: Max Lyon is a hell of a co-pilot. That guy gets it done.
Well, I'm not here to settle any scores between Google and Apple Maps. I stick to wrestling and Thanksgiving.
You're going to bring
foods.
this right back in line now. That's good. I appreciate that.
That's the only 2 things that I focus on is wrestling and Thanksgiving foods. So,
There's that. Yeah.
2 big duels this weekend. Be sure to come out and support the Boilers. Friday at 7 p.m. in Holloway, and then Sunday at 2 p.m. Is that correct?
4 p.m.
4 p.m.
4
Yeah,
p.m.
later
live
start.
on the Big Ten Network.
Later start on Sunday, and then obviously next Friday against Nebraska and Maggie.
Yep. Our last home duel will be senior night.
Alumni night?
It's going to be alumni night. Yeah, should be great. A lot of things going on. So
Talked to a few more guys yesterday. They're gonna come up from Indianapolis. So
Fantastic.
We're gonna see if we can get as many of them back. If you're listening to the podcast, you're an alumni, you haven't been contacted yet, or you want more information, let us know. Let us know. We'll get you on the list. We'll make sure you get your goodie bag and all that fun stuff.
Certainly happy to have you. So be on the lookout for the Boilers this weekend. If you can't watch, or if you can't be there in Holloway, obviously you can watch on BTN Plus on Friday and on the Big Ten Network on Sunday. So for head coach Tony Ursuline, Tanner, Corey, I'm Hunter. Thanks for joining us on another edition of the Always Aggressive podcast. And as always, Boiler up.
Good.
My trivia question: who has the most riding time points on